Welcome into K-State Online. Mason Voth, Drew Galloway. It is day 2 of Portal Watch season. We sit around, we wait, nothing happens. Again, surprisingly, I thought by this stage, it is 3:49 on Tuesday as we record this. Thought somebody would have said, I'm getting the heck out of Manhattan. Nobody, to our knowledge, has said that yet. So we'll see how things continue to progress. I saw somebody at one point make the comment about, well, maybe Tang's learned about roster retention. I can guarantee you do not want there to be a lot of roster retention with the team that just played this last year, because they're not going to get much better. And they also lose their 2 best players from last season. And I don't think you're going to pull a Coleman Hawkins or David Gasson out of the transfer portal this year in terms of if you keep everything the same. I think you got to, for the most part, blow this up and hope that, it was a very controlled demolition, and a couple of the pillars that you said, no, that's good, we want to keep those around, they did not get blown away with it as well. You want some designated survivors, Have you ever watched the show
Great
Designated
reference.
Survivor with Kiefer Sutherland?
Great show.
I remember having my mind blown when my 8th grade history teacher, shout out to Mr. Wilson, Prairie Hills Middle School, go Cougars. He was telling us about the line of succession, and then whenever the State of the Union, they're going to take one of them in case something were to happen. That's what you want to do here. You want some designated survivors, but blow up the rest of this sucker. And, maybe if there are some survivors in the rubble, you're like, yeah, okay, we'll keep you. But we really just want these guys over here that we didn't even have at the same location as you. It's a miracle that you made it. Congratulations, whatever. Here's a fun question. Drew, who are your designated survivors for K-State basketball?
If I was doing designated survivors, I'd say Doug McDaniel. I would say Brennan Hazen. I would probably say Taj Manning. I would say Moby Ike Garuka. I think that after that is probably where it gets a little bit murky.
Yeah, that's fair.
Those 4, and then it's whoever else is left. That's okay if they want to come back, but I'm not gonna burn down the house to keep them. I guess David Castillo is probably a designated survivor, but he would be the last one. Those 5, and then whoever else.
That's we don't really have a ton of room in the bunker, but we'll at least
Yes.
We'll put you up in a hotel room, and if everything goes okay and you're still around, perfect, we'll take it. There are some guys like that. I do think it continues to be Doug McDaniel and Brendan Hazen are the 2 guys that, for the most part, you would automatically say, hey, we want you back next year. And again, even if one of those or both of those guys were to leave for some reason, you don't have anybody on this roster that if they abandon you, you go, holy crap, we just took a massive hit. No, the massive hit is the fact that this team has sucked the last 2 years, and that there's currently no clear path to getting better, because none of the names in the transfer portal, for one, are all that entertaining at this point in time. And we don't have a ton of connections for K-State. And the one guy that seemed to have a clear-cut connection is certainly not coming to K-State. And we'll get into that in just a moment. But before we do that, time to remind everybody about our friends at cats2ireland.com. It'd be smart if they became your friends too, because then you wouldn't have to be sitting around and watching the game in Ireland while you're moving your brother-in-law. Like I had to watch the Aer Lingus College Football Classic last year. I was, in and out of the house, and I was slacking off sometimes in the AC watching Florida State and Georgia Tech. You don't want to have to be slacking off when K-State and Iowa State are playing. You want to be there in your seat, locked in, sweating it out with the Cats and Clones in Ireland. And the best way to do that right now, if you are stateside and you still need a ticket and you want the full experience in the Emerald Isle, go to cats2ireland.com to get hooked up with everything, and you can experience something that Drew's going to tell us about with his Ireland fun facts. So not only do you get football, you would also get whatever piece of Irish knowledge Drew's about to drop on you.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but you're not getting an experience on this fun fact. We're running low on the experience one, so I'm
You
diving
could.
more into like
I'm.
Irish
You.
sports.
You said it's sports related. You could experience that somehow. I'm sure.
I mean, I don't think so because I don't think that they'll be playing. But the Irish soccer team is not as bad as you said. They're currently ranked number 60 in the world,
That's pretty
which
bad.
well, they were 81st in basketball. So they're not as bad as at soccer as they are basketball. And then if you
Who's making these basketball rankings? Jesse Newell. There's no way they're 81st. They got to be worse than that.
and Ireland has made 3 World Cups actually, and they've gotten to the quarterfinals in 1990, and that's their best result. And then the other fun fact, though,
U.S.
this is
would kill to get to a quarterfinal.
facts. This is a 2-for-1 special because the home stadium for the Irish soccer team is Aviva Stadium.
Okay, there you go. Perfect. Man, would this surprise you? Some of the teams that Ireland is ahead of in the FIFA World Rankings right now. Just taking a little peek at what's going on. Jamaica at 62nd is there. You go down a little bit and you can find Bosnia and Herzegovina, Honduras, Ghana. Speaking of quarterfinals, how painful was that?
No.
2010, U.S. losing to Ghana in the round of 16, and Ghana gets to go to the quarterfinals, and now Ghana sucks at soccer. Maybe they sucked back then, and the U.S. just, big time choke artists. Again, I like rooting for U.S. soccer, but if things go poorly, I am more than comfortable with crapping on them because it does not affect me if they play poorly whatsoever. Zero pain. Fun when they win. I also like to get my jokes off when they lose. Let's see who else is on here.
Most recent World Cup for Ireland came in 2002. They got to the round. They still got to the round of 16.
I'm stunned to see that China's men's team is 90th, but their women are pretty good, right? Or they used to be.
Yeah, the China and Japan women's soccer good, men's soccer not great.
Because speaking of early 2010s soccer pain, wasn't it China that beat the U.S. in the World Cup final in 2011?
I think it was Japan.
Oh, could have been. I thought China was involved somehow. You're right. I think it was Japan. I think you're right.
Ireland is in the process of getting ready to qualify for the 2026 World Cup.
Put them in. Well, actually, FIFA's putting everybody in there now since they're expanding this thing.
Since they're expanding this, there is a shot that Ireland plays.
Yeah, they will be back in the World Cup sometime in the next 2 events, I would imagine, because they keep growing this thing. All right, nobody cares about our soccer talk here. I barely care about it. Let's get into K-State and the transfer portal. And what I have for you, it's not a lot, folks. And the very few things that I do have, it's not great news because let's start with Bennett Sturts. Jeff Goodman reported today that the Drake transfer, well, we think he'll be a transfer. Goodman reports that, hey, he's going to enter, and when he does, he will be following Ben McCollum to Iowa and taking that jump up, going from the MIAA to the Missouri Valley, and now he will be in the Big Ten next season. And K-State loses out on a guy that there was a clear-cut connection and obviously a phenomenal player that would have had a lot of suitors. But with his coach getting the bump up to a Power 5 situation, Sturts is going to follow him, and that makes 100% sense for Bennett Sturts to do that.
Yeah, it's a major bummer for K-State, but I think that this is kind of what we laid out yesterday. How often do you see a player who is in the portal, his coach is at a new school, and he's really good and doesn't just follow the coach? Like there are probably 1 or 2 examples of that, and there's probably a reason that those 2 didn't follow each other because they probably weren't seeing eye to eye all the time. Bennett Sturts is like Ben McCollum if he was 20 years younger, because by the way, I just learned that Ben McCollum was 43. With his hair, I thought that he was at least in his 50s.
Oh, I mean, it's at least got some color to it still.
But yeah, so if those 2 are like see eye to eye on everything, Bennett Sturts, kind of got his start from Ben McCollum because no D1 schools recruited him, and then he goes to Northwest Missouri State, wins titles there. Goes to Drake, they win 31 games, a program record. So you'd think that he would just have success at Iowa as well. But yeah, for K-State, that's a big bummer because you had all the connections in the world to potentially get him, but you didn't have the coach, and that's why. And that's why, like, we had heard about this for such a long time, but it just seemed unlikely to me, even though that everybody kept kind of saying, like, oh no, like this is a thing that could happen. Because why would he not just follow Ben McCollum? People, I think, really underestimated that he would get like a Power 5 job, I think, when they were talking about him to K-State. Because
I think it's probably because
he gets the job, and why wouldn't he just go?
Yeah, it just became pretty clear cut once you got to probably mid to late February. Ben McCollum was going to get a job in the Power 5, you would have thought. And then it just kept going so well for Drake that, like, he was in the running for the Indiana situation. And then it was reported earlier today somewhere that, there was maybe some consideration there, but I think I think Indiana probably felt like the safer play for them was Darren DeVries in the end. And then you think about,
by the way, I think Iowa might have gotten a better coach, though.
I agree. If I was a fan base, I would have rather have had Ben McCollum. I would not be upset if I had Darren DeVries, but I think you look at that and say, because there were people on our board that were talking about, well, when you got rid of Bruce, why would you not have taken a shot at him? No Power 5 athletic director is taking a shot on a D2 coach and thinking that is going to work out in a great way, because Missouri tried it with Kim Anderson and it did not work out well at all. And you're just not going to do it. It's a very risky play. And I think Indiana probably looked at it and thought, it's still a pretty risky play, even after just 1 year in the Missouri Valley. You, at least with Darren DeVries, could look at it and say, okay, you had multiple years of success, like, built up at Drake. You had a situation where he went to West Virginia, things were going well, and even without his son, who was their best player, he was able to navigate through the season and probably should have been in the NCAA tournament. I don't think Indiana's a loser for having DeVries, but I'm with you. I think Iowa got the better coach in Ben McCollum. And, I mean, it could probably be debated, but they probably got the better package player in Bennett Sturtz than what Indiana got with DeVries, with Tucker DeVries. So, which, by the way, those three guys, those were the last three Missouri Valley Conference players of the year. So just all a big old MVC infusion into the Big Ten. But K-State loses out on a guy in Bennett Sturtz that, for a stretch there, it seemed logical that K-State would have a really good chance at him in the portal, because I don't think there was much doubt that he would end up in the transfer portal, or at least not play at Drake next season. And with growing up K-State ties and everything that played into it, like, there was a strong reason to think that Bennett Sturtz to K-State could have happened. But once Ben McCollum was going to get a Power 5 job, I think the chances of it went from, as we talked about yesterday, went from K-State being the leader to having a 1% chance, but the other 99% was taken up by wherever Ben McCollum went. I don't think anybody else would have even had a chance in this situation. K-State maybe would have had a sliver, but again, that's not going to be able to stack up to what Ben McCollum has been able to do for Bennett Sturtz and what Sturtz has done for him, and just how that relationship works. Like, listening to those Northwest Missouri guys talk after games on Thursday and Saturday about Ben McCollum, like, you could tell that thing ran pretty deep and it was going to be tough to separate it. So I think it was a lot of hope from a lot of people involved with K-State, whether it be fans or people inside the athletic department, that you could maybe make a swing. Just wasn't going to happen. So K-State unofficially loses out on what their probably number one target and priority would have been in the transfer portal. And now you just kind of sit and wait for more names to populate in there that are worth coming to make you a better team. And then also how you start kind of throwing guys overboard from the ship that you're currently on.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about this yesterday, but Iowa going from Fran McCaffrey to Ben McCollum, those two guys couldn't be more different and how they play and how they act. So that's kind of wild to think about. But yeah, losing out unofficially already kind of makes you think, okay, where does this offseason go now? Because even before Bennett starts, I guess he isn't even technically in the portal yet. That was the one name that really kept popping up for K-State. So it's now, where do you go now? And even today, like I've just been looking at a lot of who enters, what they kind of did at their old school, and I'm still not fully sold on a lot of players in the portal yet. So that throws in a whole nother wrench into this of, okay, now what?
Yeah, we still sit around here and you look, top 10, there's not much of a change from yesterday. Not a ton of these guys that either A, I think are interesting, or B, that K-State is going to be in play for. So that's going to be the interesting thing. And we know that K-State is, I mean, some of these guys last year, K-State maybe would have been in the mix for, but I think they're going to be more selective and have to focus in a little bit more for a certain type of person, a certain type of player. And I don't know that anybody is really there in that spot yet. One guy, though, that does make a lot of sense for K-State. We talk about ties for Bennett Sturts and how that might work out. There is one guy with a very direct tie to K-State, and it would make a lot of sense for him. It checks a lot of boxes that you're looking for. That would be Wright, the Valparaiso transfer. He just wrapped up his time at Valpo for one season as a freshman, 15 and a half points a game, 38% from three. He has 3 years of eligibility remaining, and his father, Joe, played at K-State. And the connection really with his dad and K-State doesn't totally stop there, because his dad is in charge of one of the tournaments and the islands that K-State has gone to recently. So like there's a whole lot of connection there and how it makes sense. Yeah. Joe Wright is the owner and CEO of the Cayman Islands Classic. So maybe K-State was doing themselves a favor by going there. But this one is certainly interesting, and this feels like if you have the real interest, if you're K-State, you kind of got to seal the deal on this one. But there are serious players for Wright.
It is a very interesting kind of portal entry, because Wright, like you said, 3 years of eligibility remaining. So that immediately, I think, is something that is notable, is that he would be a multi-year guy, has the K-State ties, has a fun name. So like that's always something to me that I think is very fun. Can shoot the three really well. And kind of unlike Brendan Hazen, Wright is more of a catch, dribble, and can create his own shot 3-point shooter, where Hazen is more of like a spot up guy. Because as somebody that watched a lot of the Arch Madness, Wright takes some wild 3-pointers. And a lot of times it goes in. He ended the year strong, and I think that's kind of why he's capitalizing on how he played down the stretch for entering the transfer portal. And you look at his game log, he averaged over 20 points a game in the last 4 games and went over 20 in 6 of their final 7 games. So he ended his freshman season really strong and shot the three really well. In their game against Bradley, who was the second best team in that conference by a good margin, Valparaiso almost won because Wright was unconscious in the first half. He cooled down a little bit in the second half, and that ended up costing them. But he scored 24 points and hit 6 of the 12 threes. And that was after the quarterfinal game against Northern Iowa, where he hit another 6 threes and scored 29 points. So he can really fill it up at times, and would be a guy that I think would be kind of fun to have and have another good shooter. He's a little bit bigger of a guard too, because I think he's in that 6'3", 6'4" range. And I think it's just something that would make a lot of sense for K-State to want to be involved with him.
Yeah, no, it adds up, and I think we talk so much about development and retention, and you see 3 years remaining, that would be significant in this situation. You have the direct tie. I think this is one that you would be hopeful that K-State could possibly get in on and be involved with. Some of the other teams that Joe Tipton from On3 is saying are in the mix here. There's a lot of them, and it's a lot of significant action. South Carolina, Florida State, Butler, Richmond, K-State, Loyola, Mississippi State, Illinois, St. Louis, KU, Boise State, DePaul, George Washington, USC, Iowa, Cincinnati, Ohio State, Baylor, Oklahoma, and Dayton are all teams that have shown interest, according to Daniel Poneman, who is the agent for All Right. So there are a lot of people involved in this situation here, and we'll see, I guess, how this ends up working out for everybody. But outside of that, there's not like a ton. You can try and find like some breadcrumbs on social media. Is anybody else coming up? But it's all pretty quiet right now. It does seem like K-State is prioritizing maybe looking through the overseas route with some guys at this point in time. So maybe that's something that is the main priority while you wait for some bigger names to enter, because that's the other element of this is you're waiting around for guys that are good players for bad teams, but there are also still 16 teams still playing in the NCAA tournament. Not to mention, you got a bunch of teams that are getting ready to go play in the Crown. And I think Cincinnati's entire team is going to play, but like it's not a guarantee that they all come back. And so there's a lot of basketball still being played and a lot of names that could still enter. One that I would like to throw out there as a pure speculative point that I think would make sense for K-State as we talk about the transfer portal that I just saw is in. And he, I believe, was going to test it last year, ended up returning to Wichita State. But Quincy Ballard, their big, is in the transfer portal now. That's one that if you're thinking about K-State and needing to go out and get a big, would make some sense. He's 6'11", 250. He started his career at Florida State and then has played the last 3 seasons at WSU. And this past year, he averaged 10 and 9 in every game. And then almost the last 2 years at Wichita State, he's had 2 blocks a game. So he is a significant player. And surprisingly, K-State, I thought, did a decent job with him when they played. He didn't totally eat them up, but he still had 10 and 10 in the game when K-State lost to Wichita State. He had 19 and 15 in Wichita State's loss at Oklahoma State to start the NIT this year. So that size, which we know K-State needs a proven big, but those get expensive in the portal, and the way he played this year certainly upped his cost. But that would be one speculative name that I would throw out there that has the combination of it makes sense for K-State, and then also I think it would be in the realm of possibility, because we can throw a lot of these out that, oh, you want this, you want that. They're not real. If K-State didn't have the connection to Bennett Sturts, I don't think K-State would be a real player for the Bennett Sturts situation. Like we wouldn't have even brought his name up. But because we know that there was a direct connection there, it was realistic at one point for K-State. Obviously, no longer once Ben McCollum got the job.
Yeah, like I would do anything for K-State to get somebody like Donovan Dent, but that just doesn't seem very realistic. So you got to temper some expectations a little bit. And again, like I said, like yesterday I said there's probably 5 guys that I'm like, yeah, I would take them. Today it's probably up to like 9. So still a lot of basketball to be played, still a lot of names to be entered. We'll see where this kind of goes, because I don't think that we're near. I don't even think we're relatively close to the last people entering the transfer portal that are like, oh, this is a guy that somebody's got to get. But I think that's kind of just where we're at. Is it's a lot of we expected more, but have had a lot less, which you could argue is probably a good thing, because last year it felt very fast. Where this year, maybe they're just taking their time a little bit more and doing a little bit more digging, a little bit more research into some of these players before they go diving in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds, because really we haven't gotten anything yet to kind of understand what the strategy will be here, but that will kind of start to come about. And we'll obviously follow along with that. But we're going to do a lot of stuff based in reality, talking in the transfer portal. If there is somebody that's in there that we don't know if there's a accurate path to, but it makes sense, logical sense, we'll discuss that. But yeah, like you said, Donovan Dent, hey, that'd be great. But until something comes up that would make it tangible, it's not tangible. So we won't hit on something like that. But we know K-State has a lot that they can do to improve their situation, and we'll follow along with it on KSO. One team in Manhattan is still playing basketball, and they finally found out late last night who they will get to meet in their first Sweet 16 appearance since 2002. The K-State women will be going to Spokane this weekend, and they will face the number 1 seed USC, 7 o'clock on ESPN Saturday night. So it's a big opportunity for K-State, and in unfortunate news for USC and the basketball watching public at large, USC's star Juju Watkins, who's one of the best players in the country, tore ACL in the first quarter last night in USC's win over Mississippi State. And she obviously will not be available for this game on Saturday and the rest of the tournament. So what do you make of K-State's matchup with USC, Drew?
Yeah, first off, just bummed because I wanted to see K-State play Juju Watkins because they've played Caitlin Clark, they've played Haley Van Lith. I was hoping that Juju Watkins would be kind of that next one off the list. And it also sucks, like, just for the basketball public at large, because it's not a guarantee that Juju Watkins even plays next year with how late she tore her ACL. But you dive into USC a little bit, and they're very similar to K-State, actually, which is very interesting, and why I think that the spread coming out is where it is right now at the 1.5 for USC. K-State on Bart Torvik is 11th in offensive efficiency. USC's 14th. USC's second in defense. K-State's 20th. I always dive in, and the first thing that I do, because it's something that has really came up in the games that K-State has lost really throughout Jeff Mitty's entire career. It is, what is the other team like in terms of forcing turnovers? USC is okay. They're 57th in turnover rate forced. Kentucky was near the bottom of the country. So you're going to have to be more cognizant with the ball than you were against Kentucky. K-State had 12 turnovers in that game. You can't have that balloon to like 16 or 17 against USC. And then the other thing is 3-point defense, because in games, again, that K-State has lost over the last few years, they haven't been able to make a lot of threes and get good threes off. USC's 47th in defensive 3-point field goal percentage, which sounds like it's really good. It is good. But Kentucky was, I believe, in the top 10 before K-State made it rain over the weekend and dropped them all the way down to 17th. So because of that, you're probably a little bit more excited about the matchup. And Kentucky, where they're different from USC, is USC now will be more post-centered with Juju Watkins out. Their starting center has a 27% usage rate, and that was with Watkins playing. So you imagine if they try to feed it to her even more. But I think that K-State has a shot to win this game. And I thought that before Watkins got hurt, and now Watkins being hurt, I think that there is definitely a path. And this is, and again, I should have said this before Watkins got hurt, but this was probably the 1 seed that you would have wanted to face.
Yeah, that's probably accurate. Well, and there was some discussion about would they get the last 1 seed spot. I know, and then I think their coach even complained about the draw or something. I don't know. There's a lot of complaining that goes on with the NCAA selection committees, men and women now. So it's hard to keep up with who publicly kind of made a bad situation. But USC, I think, was one of those. Yeah, you look at this for K-State, I think it's just going to come down to, you had a for the most part, a strong performance from Ayoka Lee. She just got in foul trouble, which wasn't totally her fault based on
Can
how
can
the
she
game
get the
played out.
superstar treatment one time in a
Well,
game?
I mean, if there, it is amazing that she didn't shoot a single free throw in the game against Kentucky, and then
When she
she
shot
was
18 shots in the paint and didn't have
yeah.
a single free throw.
Yeah, that's not great. So you would expect, as long as everything's feeling good there still, you're going to get a pretty consistent performance out of her. And then, you're going to need something out of Serena Sundell. And I mean, by the way, Serena Sundell and Jalen Glenn, they both played the entire game against Kentucky. And then I think it comes down to, like, this was the one of the more notable things to me was, yes, we know that Poindexter showed up 8 of 15 from 3. Massive to get that. If you get that again from her, that's great. But I do think you're going to need either her or Terrence Sides to be on shooting the ball when they get the opportunity. And that was the encouraging thing from the win over Kentucky, is that K-State was able to do that and shoot so well with Terrence Sides going 0 for 5. And you just don't think that she's probably going to have another 0 for 5 in her. And
No,
certainly in back-to-back.
And even Jalen Glenn was 3 of 10, and it's not like these were like heavily guarded threes by any stretch of the imagination on Sides or Glenn. That is a good point, though, with Sides and Poindexter. They both probably need to be on. I would say they both probably need to combine for 9 threes to beat USC.
Yeah, you got to get something. You got to get a good aggregate out of those two. And if you get that, then you're probably in a good spot. And, that's what you're saying. Like, if you add up what they did and they gave you against Kentucky, it was 24 points.
You had 8.
All from Poindexter. And 8 threes. And then the 6 blocks from Poindexter, but Poindexter grabbed 6 boards. Sides grabbed 7. Like, you were getting production still in some ways. So we'll see how it goes down. And unfortunate, obviously, and not ever a good thing when somebody gets hurt, but people don't have to lie to themselves and say that, K-State is in a much better situation this game without Juju Watkins playing. Like, K-State has an opportunity here now that is greater than what they already had. And like you said, that's not taken away from K-State, because we know K-State, they've been a giant killer of some of the best players in college basketball over the last couple of years. Like, they went into Carver Hawkeye last year and beat Caitlin Clark. So they can really beat about anybody. We've seen it. They're going to get their opportunity to do it now in a big spot in the Sweet 16 against USC this Saturday. So we'll keep our eyes on that and updates to follow there as K-State heads up to Spokane to try and get to the Elite Eight. And then on the other side, waiting for them would be either UConn or Oklahoma. We know Oklahoma was their boogeyman last year in Big 12 play. Basically, single-handedly, the reason why K-State didn't win the Big 12 last year, I think you can trace it back to those games against Oklahoma, where I think those were kind of just soul crushers when you look at how they ended up
Especially
playing
that
out.
first one.
Yeah.
That first one was a big-time soul crusher.
Yeah. So we'll see how that ends up going on. And the loss in Norman last year, and then they had to follow it up. They had to go play at Texas. They lost. Yeah, just tough stuff, and things got away from them from that point. But we'll see how it follows along. Yeah, and I guess I thought they lost both games to Oklahoma last year. Somehow they won the first one, and that just blew me away. I thought that they lost both.
If I remember right, if I remember right, the first one last year was early when Oklahoma was kind of sputtering, because Oklahoma ended last year very hot.
Oklahoma was bad last year to start, and you thought, oh, this team's terrible. And K-State went down there and like, oh, actually, and then they ended up winning the Big 12, because that was like the sliding doors moment of the season last year, where for OU, that's what basically flipped it, and they're going to win the Big 12 now. But they have this path. For K-State, it kind of started to slide, because then they had the loss to Texas, and then later on they had their funk where obviously Iowa State got them twice, and then the loss to KU didn't help in there as well. So lot to take in there. But we'll follow along with it, see how K-State USC plays out this weekend, go from there, and also keep our eye on the transfer portal. But it's it's kind of boring right now. I plenty of it to discuss over on KSO. There's no shortage of that, but it is a lot of what are we doing? Where's the philosophy? Like who do you want? Like it's just common people like you and me saying, who do you want? And what we don't have any clear-cut idea yet. Hopefully, we start to get more of that in the coming days, and I imagine that we will. And like we said, you're waiting on some better players to enter into the portal or guys that fit a little bit more. But stay up to date with everything going on K-State in the portal. Whether they get somebody, they're interested in somebody, or they lose someone, we've got it at KSO, and we'll also do our best of keeping you covered right here on the KSO YouTube and podcast as well. So for Drew Galloway, I'm Mason Voth. Thanks for watching the KSO show today. We are back again tomorrow where once again, we'll sit around, we'll wait, we'll see if anything happens. Seems doubtful based on the pace we're currently on, but it moves fast. So something could change rapidly tonight and we'll let you know.